Hey, it's been a while, at least since I've talked to you like this. Um, I wrote this script like a few months ago, but I didn't get to filming it until now because like, was depressed for some reason. Don't ask me why. But hey, we're here now, so let's get this over with. I right before I wrote the script, I was reading this little book. Well, I mean, it's a pretty big book, as you can see, but it's called Stories of the Great Operas, written by some guy named Ernest Newman, from 1928. It's like a century old. And the book was given to me by my grandfather because I kind of like opera, it's an interest of mine, if you didn't know that about me. And when I was flipping through the wizened pages, this little picture fell out, which seemingly has no relation to the book about operas, because, it's a painting. This book is not about painting, it's about opera. So it's kind of weird. But as soon as I laid eyes on this image, I swore to myself that I would find what this painting is, what it's called, who painted it, when it was painted, and where it currently resides, should it still exist, So I took a picture of it with my phone and submitted it to Google image search, as one does, and I got my answer. It's called the Cluny Annunciation. It was painted by Roger van der Weyden, likely with help from Hans Memling, sometime between 1465 and 1475, and now it currently lives in the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art, not to be confused with the Metropolitan Opera. And yeah, I guess that's that. The video's over. Or is it? Yeah, of course it isn't. But if you are still watching, congratulations. You have made it farther into my video than the average person. Yeah, just like 1 minute of average watch time. That's what my analytics say. Have our attention spans really become that diminished? Or maybe I am just that boring. In the first chapter of Luke, verses 26 through 38, an archangel literally named Man of God appears and announces to this young woman that she's going to have a little baby. And there's nothing she can do about it, but that's okay because the baby's going to be God incarnate and he's going to save the world. And so Mary, that's her name, she's like, okay, cool, but how? Because, they don't call her the Virgin Mary for nothing. And so the angel, Gabriel, he's just like, because you will, and just up and left. And yeah, she seemed pretty chill with the fact that she was being forced to undergo child labor, all things considered. But anyway, the event is a pretty significant one in the Christian canon, because we can observe Gabriel's annunciation to Mary being represented in Christian art for pretty much as long as the religion's been around. Freaking more light required? Okay. Is that better? I think it is. Okay. Depictions of Gabriel's message date at least to around the 4th century, from the time of the Byzantine Empire to the period right after its collapse, when people actually started learning how to draw better. The Renaissance era is home to some of the most impressive and captivating versions of this image, such as those of the Netherlandish Jan van Eyck or Robert Campin. Remember those names, remember them. As well as the Italian Fra Angelico, Filippo Lippi, or Sandro Botticelli. And we can't forget the man, Leonardo himself. I'm getting to my next point. I'm remembering it. Just give me a second. Right. So this vast improvement in artistic quality could be attributed to the growing interest in natural sciences that arose in tandem with the concept of humanism. Art became less about portraying these holy figures as, I don't know, entirely transcendent, but more about, showing them as real people with imperfectly physical rather than sublimely divine characteristics. Anatomical research, like that of Da Vinci's, also helped a lot in making these paintings feel more, tangible, as opposed to the more flat and two-dimensional drawings of the Middle Ages. And not to diss medieval artists, of course. Like, when it comes to things like, calligraphy, they really outdid themselves, but also, like, Florence, or Firenze, is revered as the birthplace of the rebirth, which is the literal translation of Renaissance. And I've actually been there before. It's a really beautiful city if, you just ignore all the people on the street trying to sell you something. But anyway, that realm of this pre-modern movement is not going to be the subject of today's lecture. Instead, we will be focusing on Central France. Now, in the 15th century, and that's the 1400s, mind you, not the 1500s, all of the monarchs that ruled the nation of France were a part of the Capetian dynasty. And of the many kings taking part in the great European power competition, during the 100 Years' War, was John II. Now, John II of France is not that important, except for the fact that from him the sequential rulers of the region of Burgundy and the House of Valois are descended. Now, the ducal title of Burgundy, which was controlled by the House of Valois, which itself is a cadet branch of the Capetian dynasty, the ducal title of that region was initially inherited by Philip the Bold, who was John II's fourth son. Philip the Good was Philip the Bold's grandson, and he eventually inherited the ducal title of Burgundy as well. The line would end, however, about 2 generations after Philip the Good, when his granddaughter, Mary, who was the only legitimate heir to the throne, married into the Habsburg dynasty through Archduke and later Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I. And wait a minute, isn't that the same guy I talked about in that other video that you are going to watch right now? So what made Philip so good? That I really don't know, but I can say that he was a very well-renowned art patron, had quite a flair for the arts. He commissioned works from both painters and musicians, but most notably from Flemish and Netherlandish artists like Jan van Eyck. Remember him? Great. If you have a really impeccable memory, however, you will notice that that name is different from from the two that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, and that's because they are indeed different people. But they are connected. You see, they're both a part of the same Netherlandish school of art. But even deeper than that, they had a pretty close relationship to the Burgundian branch of the House of Valois of the Capetian dynasty of France. Philip the Good, in addition to commissioning work from Jan van Eyck, also worked with or commissioned work from Roger van der Weyden, the guy who I mentioned as painting the painting that started all of this tomfoolery. And van der Weyden was also mentored by Robert Campagne, who's that other guy. So even deeper than all of this, the thing that these painters and commissioners shared was just this inclination to illustrate the Annunciation given to Mary by the angel Gabriel on the canvas. And thus, it all comes together. You see now what can come of your patience. Good things. Why is that refracting right in my face? I can just move. Okay. When I searched for the image on Google, this was the first result that I got, and initially I thought I had achieved an immediate victory, but then I looked at the painting again and realized it was a slightly different interpretation of the Annunciation that was painted by Hans Memling. But I knew I was on the right track because the style looked eerily similar to the painting that I found in my book. So I kept looking for like 1 minute, and there it was. This time, however, it was said to have been done by Rogier van der Weyden or Hans Memling, which was a little confusing at first, but thankfully the Metropolitan Museum's official website was able to clear things up with the widely accepted theory that Rogier van der Weyden was the one originally commissioned to make the painting, and he did make the design for it, maybe like sketched it out, and then Memling finished it for him after he died in 1464, because Memling might have actually been van der Weyden's apprentice. This would explain why their styles look so similar. Now, give me a second so that I may memorize the next paragraph of lines. There are many distinguishing characteristics between these two paintings of the Annunciation, but one particular peculiarity is this little pair of keys within a blue coat of arms that you can observe right here on the window, if it will focus, and also down here on the carpet. So, according to whatever historians that the explanation of this painting comes from, these are not the papal keys on the flag of the Holy See. This heraldry instead indicates that the painting was commissioned by the Cluny family. This family likely originates from the French town of the same name, though that's actually spelled like this instead of that. And no, it's not spelled like that either. It's Cluny with a G. But yeah, the commune's own coat of arms does look very similar, if not identical, to that of the families. I still think it's possible, however, that the keys could represent St. Peter's keys to heaven, as they also appear on the Vatican City flag, though I could not find any sources confirming this. I mean, are there really many other forms of key symbolism in the Christian tradition, though? I don't know. Also, while it is widely known that the town of Cluny really came into fruition because of the eponymous abbey established by Duke William I of Aquitaine, the same abbey that was home to the Cluniac reforms of the 10th century, I still am not really clear on the origin of the name itself, which is very tantalizing for me because I like to know the origin of names and stuff. But yeah, perhaps those are all some interesting queries that could make for yet another ineffectual investigation. There was actually a member of this family by the name of Henri de Cluny who became a counselor to Duke John the Fearless, who was the son of Philip II and father to the good Philip. Now, because the Cluny family was so close to the House of Valois, the son of Henri, this counselor, would himself become a member of Philip III's Grand Council, as well as Chancellor of the Order of the Golden Fleece, which was a little club that Philip the Good started to celebrate his very unfaithful marriage to Isabella of Portugal. But yeah, apparently he had like at least 24 mistresses on the side and fathered 18 known illegitimate children, which does not sound too good to me, but hey, the Order of the Golden Fleece did go on to become one of the most prestigious chivalric orders in history, whatever that means. But anyway, I think that's enough about him. The name of this esteemed statesman and personal friend to the Burgundian Duchy, as I'm sure you've been aching to know, is Ferry. Ferry de Cluny. I love French. In addition to those aforementioned roles, Ferry de Cluny was also a Catholic cardinal, and the Bishop of Tournai, or Tournai? I don't know, I can't pronounce it the same way that Google Translate did, but yeah, it's right here. It's this city in the region of Wallonia. I should also mention that Fedi personally baptized the daughter of Duchess Mary the Rich and her husband, Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I. Like I said, the man was super close to the Burgundian royal family, but right now I'm going to digress a little bit to blow your mind as to how snobbishly and incestuously interconnected all of this crap is, for no other reason than because I want to, and it's interesting. I'm going to look at my script just so that I make sure that, I get this right. But the aforementioned child, Margaret of Austria, would go on to marry this guy named John, Prince of Asturias. John was the son of Ferdinand II, King of Aragon, which is in present-day Spain. Fun fact, Ferdinand II was the husband of Isabella I of Castile, the very same Isabella who sponsored Christopher Columbus's imminent 1492 voyage. But Ferdinand II was, of course, the grandson of one Ferdinand I of Aragon. Another fun fact, that Ferdinand was the father of Catherine of Aragon, aka King Henry VIII's first wife of many. Now, I talked a little bit about Maximilian's father, Frederick III, in that other video. But let's learn a thing or two about his mother. Holy Roman Empress Eleanor of Portugal was conceived by King Edward of Portugal and his consort Eleanor of Aragon, which is in present-day Spain. Yeah, unsurprisingly, Eleanor is the daughter of Ferdinand I, making Margaret of Austria the wife of her second cousin. Excuse me, those are my nachos. Well, even after all of this, you may be thinking, wait, didn't you already mention someone from Portugal earlier in the video? Well, thank you for reminding me, and yes, that was Isabella of Portugal, wife of Philip the Good, or Philip the Not So Good, I don't know. Isabella and King Edward were siblings. Yeah. People make jokes about the Habsburg dynasty, because they have that lip defect thing, which this is completely different. I swear, I'm not a part of the Habsburg dynasty. I'm not. But, they weren't the only ones doing the inbreeding. As I wrote here, the entire European monarchical family, not families, family, adhered to an international plot that we can still observe the effects of today, to keep anyone without purely royal blood, for as far back as one is able to trace, from besmirching the sacred bloodline. Now, I don't want to kink shame, but surely I mean explain to you why this is very questionable behavior. There's the birth defects, obviously, but also this way of thinking unambiguously parallels that of a eugenicist. I think it's time for a change of setting, so as to wash myself of this ethical filthiness. My AirPods are not working anymore, so it looks like these are my only other option, because, I don't just want it to be my phone microphone that you hear me on, because that's, I don't know, it's closer, it's more clear. What was I talking about again? Oh, right. The painting. So, whether it was from his relationship to the House of Valois or his familiarity with the Walloon region, it is not very difficult to imagine how Ferry de Cluny could have come into contact with a Belgian like Rogier van der Weyden. as the painter was literally born in the same city that Ferry would eventually become the bishop of. Though, looking at their death dates and everything, it does appear that Rogier died shortly before Ferry actually became the bishop of that city that I'm not going to try and pronounce again. But it is still possible that the Burgundian cardinal could have met Rogier van der Weyden in Belgium. Maybe they bonded over the fact that they both have a father named Henri. And then Ferry introduced the painter to the Duke of Burgundy. Or vice versa, maybe Philip was the one who gave Ferry a tip about Rogier. My personal headcanon as to why Ferry de Cluny even commissioned this work of art from Rogier de la Pasteur in the first place is that he could have seen one of the painter's other various depictions of the Annunciation, like the St. Columba altarpiece in Cologne, Germany, or the Annunciation triptych, that's central panel, now lies in the Louvre, and thought to himself, I gotta get me one of those. And so he did. He got him one of those. It's an unbearably simple explanation, but it works, because Occam's razor and everything, right? Except, Rogier did kind of die before he could finish it, and so his likely apprentice, Hans Memling, did the rest of the work for him. And then Memling, like all of those before him, Campin, Van Eyck, Da Vinci, so on, became so inspired by this sacred myth that he felt this inclination to create an interpretation of it that was entirely his own, and without even being paid to do so, presumably. Well, I guess that's about all the certainty you're going to get researching an inconsequential event that took place, over half a millennium ago? And I mean, you can call it pointless, meaningless, this kind of research, but I still find it compelling for some reason. I don't know why. I'm not even religious. I'm not a painter. I'm just attracted to the obscure, I guess. I don't know. There's always more that you want to know about a certain historical figure, or really just anyone who's dead now. And you can't know everything, and that's okay, because people aren't they're not obligated to record everything they do or why they do it. People, they have a right to privacy. It's just that, the most popular people, the people who have the greatest impact on society, whether positive or negative, they get the most attention. But what about all the people who just do something? They just make a little piece of art. It's not much, but it's still significant, because art in itself, it has significance, it has meaning. I'm still trying to figure out what this means. Something tells me that there's probably more than one answer. But I'm kind of starting to sweat now because it's pretty hot. It's probably best that I conclude the video at this point. So, if you're watching this half a millennium in the future, hi, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you around. From both painters and musicians, but most notably from, specifically, yeah, he's a cute boy. But yeah, he commissioned work primarily from Flemish and Netherlandish artists. I can't keep it together. Okay, he commissioned work from. He just sat right down.